What if the only person who could save her was the one who put her on the block in the first place? Smash that subscribe button because the next twist will tear your heart out before it hands it back, stitched with gold. The rain hammered the tin roof of the derelict riverside warehouse, turned auction house like bullets on a war drum when Elias Voss, the most feared private auctioneer in the European underworld, lifted the velvet cloth from the final lot. Beneath it, chained to a rusted swivel chair, sat a girl no older than 20. Skin the color of moonlit porcelain, eyes the shade of storm clouds before they break. And when those eyes found his across the smoky kerosene light, they did not blaze with fury or glaze with narcotic surrender, they whispered, soundlessly but unmistakably, please. Elias felt the words strike his sternum like a tuning fork struck by fate itself. And before the first bid could crackle from the walkie-talkies of the assembled traffickers, he heard himself roar. She's not for sale, the syllables ripping from his throat like shrapnel. Shocking even him, because Elias Voss had sold everything from plutonium to children's hearts without once flinching. Yet in that instant the warehouse lights flickered as if the universe itself rewrote the rules inside his chest. The buyers, Serbian warlords, Qatari playboy financiers, a Texan televangelist with blood on his cufflinks froze, half amused, half homicidal. While the girl's lips trembled, the ghost of a thank you that tasted of rusted iron and unshed tears. Elias signaled his bodyguards to surround the chair, but as they moved, the girl's cuff chain snapped open of its own accord, no lockpick. No key metal, simply parted like the Red Sea, and she stood, swaying. Palms glowing with a pale blue luminescence that lit the veins beneath her skin like rivers of starlight. In the hush, Elias heard his own pulse counting down to something cataclysmic. And then the warehouse doors exploded inward under the battering ram of an Interpol tactical squad led by Captain Leila Moreau, Elias's former lover, who had sworn to kill him the day he auctioned her sister to a cartel boss who mailed back finger bones as proof of purchase. Yet Leila's assault rifles hesitated when they saw the girl raise her hand, and every gun in the room locked. Rigid. Safeties frozen, triggers soldered by invisible frost. And Elias understood that the merchandise was no ordinary captive, but a living weapon the traffickers had lured. Not kidnapped an emissary of an ancient lineage that could bend matter with sorrow. The girl whispered a single word, Aurelia, and the warehouse mirrors cracked into spiderwebs, reflecting infinite versions of the same scene. Elias reaching for her, Leila screaming his name, the buyers scattering like roaches. Aurelia touched Elias's cheek, and the scar he'd carried since Sarajevo vanished. Skin knitting together as if the bullet had never torn through him. And in that instant he saw her memories, an island monastery swallowed by tidal flame. Monks chanting her name as the sea turned to glass. Her mother hiding her inside a cedar chest that floated for 7 nights until black market fishermen found her dreaming beneath a canopy of bioluminescent plankton. Elias realized the traffickers had been hired not to sell her, but to deliver her to a buyer whose face was still unseen. A man known only as the architect, who believed her DNA could rewrite death itself. Leila's squad withdrew when the architect's mercenaries descended from the rafters on carbon fiber cables. Masked phantoms wielding plasma lances that sliced through Kevlar like butter. Elias grabbed Aurelia and dove through a window, shards of glass carving constellations across his forearms, landing on the rain-slick deck of a stolen police speedboat whose engine coughed to life beneath Leila's startled curse because she had commandeered the same escape route. The three of them tore down the Danube under helicopter searchlights, Aurelia unconscious in Elias's arms, her breath forming frost patterns that spelled coordinates over the windshield. Leila wanted to cuff Elias, but the coordinates led to a derelict hospice in the Carpathians where Elias's own mother lay dying of the same degenerative neural disease that had killed every woman in his family for 3 generations. And he understood the architect had promised him the cure in exchange for delivering Aurelia. At the hospice they found the architect, Dr. Victor Miles, Elias's estranged father, once a Nobel hopeful geneticist who had faked his death to pursue outlawed telomerase research, waiting beside the withered body of Elias's mother, machines beeping her last heartbeats. Victor demanded Aurelia's spinal fluid in exchange for the serum that could reverse the family curse, revealing that Aurelia's cells aged backward, that she was born old and grew younger each year, the inverse entropy of her mitochondria capable of rebooting human life. Elias raised the pistol he'd sworn never to use again, but Aurelia stepped between them, tears freezing into pearls that clattered on the tile. And she spoke for the first time in a voice like every lullaby ever forgotten, "I will give what you need. But only if the auction ends forever." Victor laughed until Aurelia touched his wrist, and his decades of greed crystallized into a single tear that fell into the syringe she offered. The tear dissolved into the serum, turning it clear as glacier water. And when injected into Elias's mother, her eyes opened the color of newborn skies. But the miracle came with a price. Aurelia collapsed, her glow dimming, hair turning silver, skin wrinkling as time finally caught her. Elias cradled her while Leela handcuffed Victor, reading him his rights through sobs. And in the silence, Elias heard the distant gavel of every auction he'd ever held pound like a dying heart. He whispered to Aurelia that he would trade every remaining second of his life for hers and the universe. Perhaps exhausted by centuries of bargains, accepted. His mother rose fully healed, but Elias's own reflection aged decades in moments. Hair whitening, spine curving, eyes clouding with cataracts that reflected Aurelia's restored youth, she awoke 17 again, glowing brighter than ever. But Elias now 90 and fading. The final twist came when Aurelia pressed her lips to his and the age drained from him in a torrent of light, reversing like film rewound. But instead of returning to his 38 years, he became a boy of 7, standing beside his mother in field of sunflowers. Decades before the first auction, before the first betrayal, innocence intact. Aurelia, now ageless, kissed his small forehead and vanished into golden pollen on the wind, leaving behind only the memory of her plea and the echo of an auctioneer's promise she was never for sale. But love itself had purchased them both, setting the scales of cosmic justice spinning. Leela found Elias hours later, age restored, kneeling in the sunflower field, clutching a single silver pearl that had once been a tear. She dropped her badge into the dirt beside him, took his hand. And together they walked away from every war they'd ever fought, while behind them the hospice burned. Victor's research reduced to ash. And in the smoke the faint outline of wings formed Aurelia's final signature on a contract written in mercy. Years later, on a cliff above the Aegean, Elias and Leela run a sanctuary for trafficked survivors, teaching them to sail, to read star maps, to forgive. Every evening, Elias stands at the prow scanning the horizon, waiting for a glimmer of blue light. And though she never reappears, the children swear that on nights when the moon is a fingernail and the sea is glass, a girl walks upon the waves, leaving footprints of frost that spell the same word Aurelia, and the auction bell that once ruled Elias's life rings only as wind chimes made from melted guns, singing that nothing human can ever be sold again.